March 14, 2012, my son Thomas lost his battle with the disease of addiction. I now belong to a club that no parent should ever belong to. Do you know the signs? Do you know the trends that children are doing in today's world? Do you know the signs and symptoms? Do you know the signs and symptoms of drug abuse? I want to empower and educate Long Islanders by bringing a force of professionals and how to prevent the disease of addiction. Long Island in Crisis. Good evening and welcome to Long Island in Crisis. This show is about educating and empowering all people about substance use disorder. There is not one person that is unaffected by this, whether personally. Our society is affected every single day through our loved ones, our military, our cost to the taxpayer for medical care for people, suffering with the disease, bank robberies. I can go on and on and on. And tonight, my very special guest is Suffolk County Police Commissioner Tim Sini. Thank you so much, Tim.
Well, thank you for having me.
And I want to tell you that from the bottom of my heart, that you are doing such a great, amazing job. You inherited a mess. And you jumped in with both feet, and you hit the ground running, and you're making a change every single day. And I want to thank you personally for just taking it on.
Well, thank you for the support. We couldn't do what we're doing without the partnerships that we have.
And your availability to talk to everyone, which is so important. You're not locked away someplace that you don't want to hear what's going on.
No, if the way I can be effective is to know what's going on the street. So whether it's about the opioid epidemic, whether it's about gangs, and talking to people. And listen, sometimes I know more about crime in the neighborhood than people do in terms of the reality of crime, but it's also important for me to understand people's perceptions, because in order for us to most effectively police, we have to have good, healthy partnerships. And if we're not empathizing with the people who we're tasked to protect and to serve, we're not going to have those partnerships, and law enforcement will suffer for it. So it's very important for me to keep my finger on the pulse.
And you are doing an amazing job. So it's people, I put them in their place if they choose to try to criticize you, just so you know that, because you really are. You're doing a great job. You've really changed dynamics of communities whereby people would say, it doesn't matter if I call the police, they don't do anything. Yes, they now will do something. Call your local precinct. That's a good thing. They will come and start to investigate what's going on in your community. And that's important for people to feel that it's not going to go unanswered.
Right. That's key to the partnership. When I came in, one of the biggest complaints that I was hearing, particularly with respect to the opioid epidemic, was that people were calling, whether it was a general number, 852 cops, or the precincts, or 911, about drug activity in their neighborhoods, and nothing was getting done. And that was for a variety of reasons. The way we had our narcotics enforcement structured was allowing for a bottlenecking of complaints. So we restructured the way we handle complaints. We rolled out a new hotline that's specifically designated for drug dealing complaints in your community. We put more resources, more bodies in narcotics enforcement. We re-engaged our federal law enforcement partners, which allowed us to leverage resources. We partnered with Nassau County, which did the same. So we tried to tap into force multipliers. We also made significant investments in narcotics enforcement, and we, from the top down, we sent the message, addressing the issue, following up on these complaints is critical to a healthy community policing model. And it's, even if we can't solve the problem entirely, because sometimes, when you have a rental property in a neighborhood, it sometimes can be a complicated issue. But as long as we're doing everything in our power to address the issue, we're collaborating with all of our partners, whether in law enforcement or at the town or whatever it may be, and we're getting back to the people who made the complaint. And look, it's not a perfect system. I get, when I'm out in the community, one of the...
I can imagine.
Yeah, when I'm out in the community, we get a lot of positive feedback, but I also get a lot of constructive criticism. Oh, I called and this didn't happen, this happened. And I want to hear that.
No, that's good. Constructive, but to make a blanket statement that nothing's changed is way off base.
Yeah, and the numbers, and the numbers just belie that notion. So our search warrant enforcement is up 160%.
That's amazing.
From last year, and that's fueled in large part because of the hotline and the complaints that we're getting from residents through other channels.
But we're still seeing so many overdoses. And
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yeah, so year to date, we're already over 200 fatal overdoses. In terms of the non-fatals, it's over 1,000.
Yeah, and that's just, it's just mind-boggling to me. It's just still, and that's the desperation. So we were talking about that. But, when we break down the substance use disorder, I wrote an op-ed in 2014, and I was brave enough to go on, and I prepared myself to read the comments online. And people actually said, well, he deserved to die. No one deserves to die from substance use disorder, number one. It's not something that they choose. So the ignorance of society to even say something like that. But people don't realize the societal cost to our taxes, certainly in Suffolk County, nationwide. The societal costs in health care for the rest of the family suffering with the disease that's going to lead to other high blood pressure, all those things with the family. People not being treated for substance use disorder and or going on to Medicaid, making it then a taxpayer burden. Bank robberies, all these robberies that are going on, the drunk driving or the, driving while high is incredible. Every day I open up the paper and we have that going on all the time. How can you be blind? How can we, get a different message out to people?
Yeah, I mean, the societal cost is enormous. And from a law enforcement perspective, most of our crime in Suffolk County is fueled by drug addiction.
Yes.
Particularly the opioid epidemic, but various drug addictions. And what I often say when I speak in public about this is, it's the Suffolk County Police Department's official position that addiction is a disease, and it needs to be treated as such. So we need to do everything we can on the law enforcement front to make sure that we're sending the message that we're not going to tolerate drug dealing in our communities. We need to do what we can on the supply side. We have some really great cases in the pipeline that I think actually make a difference. We also target enforcement in areas where we see spikes in overdoses, and we have an effect on those numbers. But I'm under no illusion, and I can talk about all the success we've had, but I'm under no illusion that we're going to arrest ourselves out of this problem.
We can't
It's a public
arrest
health
ourselves.
issue.
It's a public health issue. It's just a public health issue. So you for every one person, every dealer that you lock up, there's 3 still coming down because let's face it, they're making a lot of money.
Right.
And that's what they see, whether it's to fuel their own addiction, which I don't necessarily believe. It's a great business. They're driving Mercedes, they're doing, I'm sure you see it all the time.
And the horrific part, it's bad enough to sell heroin, but what they're doing now is they're cutting it more and more with dangerous compounds, and that's fueling some of the overdose numbers. Now still, our numbers are showing that heroin is the leading cause of fatal overdoses, but more and more we're seeing fentanyl and other synthetic opioids that dealers are cutting the heroin with. And why? To save more money.
Yep.
So it's all about making more money. It's all about the bottom line.
It's all about their bottom line. But it's funny, people will say, well, it must have been a bad batch of heroin. And I'll say, I want you to listen to that statement again. Is there a good batch of heroin that I'm unaware of? Because I would say that all heroin is bad.
Right.
So we're still not coming to how did we get to heroin, and we have to do such a better job on educating our young people. So I just mentioned to you that I had 4 girls come and sell candy on Sunday afternoon. And I thought, I haven't seen this in my neighborhood. Don't see any Girl Scout, coming door to door. And when my kids were young, they used to do that damn wrapping paper. But they used to go to the neighbors that we knew.
Right.
You don't see that anymore. And that's a shame, because if we don't start to take back our own communities and watch out for our own neighbors and all our kids, then what are we going to do? Be locked in our houses? Is that where, I don't want to live there. I want to be out and see my neighbors and say hi. And I want to hear kids ride their bikes up and down the street. I want to hear them scream and play Ringalivio and all of that. So how do we get back to letting people know that that's okay?
Right. I think a lot of it is there's misperceptions about safety of our streets. Suffolk County is one of the safest counties in the country. Yes. There's been a steady decline in crime over the last couple decades, and crime now in 2016 is down from 2015, and we experienced historic lows in 2015. I really do believe that social media
yes.
Warps people's perception. The 24/7 news cycle, even if it has nothing to do with Suffolk County, warps people's perceptions. And it's almost like people give in. They cede ground to the negativity or to the criminal element, and there's no reason to do that. Part of our job in the police department is to help empower communities. So Brentwood is a really great example. So Brentwood is obviously going through...
And they've suffered tremendously.
Right, they're going through very traumatic times right now. 2 girls were murdered right on the street. 2 other boys' skeletal remains were found in the area who went missing earlier in the year. So they're experiencing trauma. And I'm out there talking to community groups and folks on the ground, and they have a lot of pride in their community. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason they have a lot of pride is because they've worked very hard over the years to make Brentwood a safer place, to increase quality of life, to make it an inclusive community, and they have. They've done a great job. Crime has been decreasing in Brentwood over the last several years. It's down almost 30% this year.
They do a great job with sports.
They do.
They really bring
kids into sports. They have a lot of school pride.
Yes.
A lot of school pride.
Yes.
And so the idea is, you got to take that trauma, take that anger, and direct it to something good. And so today, we had a meeting with several Brentwood mothers, and their question, and I was so uplifted by their question, because a lot of times, you say, I'm out there. A lot of times, we have to take it on the chin, and that's our job, and that's okay. I'm very comfortable with that. But one of the first things that these ladies said was, well, how can we help? And that was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
They want to be part of the solution. And frankly, that's the only way that we're going to change things. Everything it has to come from the community. And government is there to facilitate and to help. And police are there, obviously, to provide the best police services possible. But without that community, grassroots movement, you're never really going to change a community. We used to use a term when I was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, when I was a federal prosecutor, we used the term weed and seed. So law enforcement can weed out the bad guys, but then the community has to seed to make sure they don't come back and that they grow good, productive citizens. And it's a partnership, and government can...
So how can you help them? Can you put, I don't know what they used to call it, but young people getting involved with the police department?
Right, yeah, so we have a lot of programs that we're pushing pretty hard right now in those communities. We have the Police Explorers, we have the Youth Academy.
Yes.
And, again, that community is vibrant, resilient, very civic-minded. So they're
very church-minded also.
Yes, the religious institutions play a huge role in the community. So getting the pastors to the table is very important. So we're going to be doing several different things. We've already started some of them. I can talk about that. But part of the process is going to be forming a coalition of people from religious,
All the sectors.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
school, religion, PTA, immigrant advocacy groups, community watch groups, everyone who's a stakeholder in the community, so that they can come up with ideas and implement and make sure government is doing what it should be doing. So one of the things we're rolling out a gang prevention program in Brentwood. It's an early intervention program. So we're going to be working with the stakeholders as to how to most effectively roll that out. It's a program that I helped create with the Suffolk County Probation Department in Wyandanch and North Belport, and it utilizes a not-for-profit organization called Strong. They're an anti-gang not-for-profit organization.
Excellent.
They use evidence-based programs. That in particular, they'll be using Why Try, which is an evidence-based program to reduce violent incidents among young people, truancy, absenteeism, increased self-esteem, self-worth, conflict resolution skills. And it also, what's unique about this is it incorporates the family. And that's key. You know, if we're not, we can do everything we can at the school, but if the child is not getting the support at home,
absolutely,
it goes to waste.
Absolutely. The teacher is in lieu of the parents for those hours that they're at school, but still parents are the #1 deterrent for anything that a child is going to do.
Right.
And or the greatest fan that you'll ever have is your mom and dad. But unfortunately, and you know, the gangs, again, when you don't have a family at home, the gang is a very dysfunctional family where you're going to get support. You're going to get, you know, brought in. You're made to feel like you belong somewhere. And that's why, I mean, I see youth being drawn in because mom and dad both working. Mom and dad may not be together anymore. You know, there's so many reasons in society today. So how can we start to cut down? Because I know that gangs have really starting to rise on Long Island again.
Yeah, and the gangs know who to recruit. So they're
Yes.
they're going to recruit children who recently immigrated to this country. They're going to recruit children who don't have the support at home. So it's very important that we do several different things. You know, I kind of think of it as a three-part strategy. You have to have the law enforcement piece, particularly
Yes.
with the gangs. So what we're doing on the law enforcement end is we've utilizing our criminal intelligence section, we've made strategic subject lists of known gang members in communities throughout Suffolk County. And we're assigning gang members to individual gang officers and fast team members. So gang officers are officers who specialize in gang enforcement. They know gangs, and they're also in the precinct, so they know the community. So they're going to be focused on individual gang members, along with our fast team members, which is our new firearm suppression team, another elite group of officers and detectives who have gang expertise. So we're going to be increasing enforcement and pressure on the criminal element, all the while strategically partnering with our federal law enforcement partners, specifically FBI, HSI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, to prosecute known gang members under the RICO statute. And that's sort of the weeding. So there's some people who, they're just too far gone, they're too dangerous, we need to get them off the street. And the RICO statute is very beneficial because they either go to jail for long periods of time,
Yes.
or they cooperate and we're able to lock up more violent people. So we're going to be applying pressure on the street, gaining intelligence, preventing violence, and then strategically taking these people out under the RICO statute. So that's the weeding. The seeding takes, in my view, this sort of two buckets. There are kids who are starting to associate,
Yes.
who are at high risk. They may not be engaged in criminal behavior, but they're hanging out with people who are.
Yes.
Or they may be engaged in criminal behavior, but we don't have a case against them, and you know they're not too far gone. They're not murderers. We're doing community intervention. So what we have several different strategies. One of them is custom notifications. So we will we'll identify a particular social group or gang or clique, whatever it may be, and we'll knock on their doors, and we'll give them a letter on my letterhead, and my Deputy Police Commissioner, Risco Mention-Lewis, spearheads this effort. And she'll go, someone from the precinct will go. We do 2 white shirts and 2 blue shirts, so 2 supervisors and 2 officers. And then we have someone from the community, maybe a pastor or coach, someone from the school, and we'll knock on the door, and we'll give them, and if the parent is there, great. If not,
Right.
it doesn't even matter. We'll deal directly with the child, and we'll give them a letter on the letter saying, if you continue down this road, of criminal behavior, criminal association, this is some of the consequences you face. And we'll make it specific to them. We'll actually lay out their criminal history. So if you get convicted of a violent offense, this is what you'll go to jail for. And then,
it's brilliant.
Yeah, and then we'll get in their face. We'll let them know, most importantly, the psychological effect of law enforcement and community saying, we know who you are. You're not anonymous.
Right.
And if you keep up this shenanigans, you're going to get in trouble, or worse, you could end up dead. And there's an alternative, and we'll try to connect them to resources in the community. In Brentwood, there's a community resource center. In Wyandanch, there's a community resource center, and we have enormous success with this. Most of the people we make contact with do not recidivate; they don't commit crimes. Whether it's because we connected them to a resource, or we're just in their face and we've deterred them. And a lot of times we'll make contact with an adult, whether it's grandma or mom. And
grandma would be the best.
Yeah, oftentimes it is.
Yes.
And they read the letter, and today, for example, I wasn't there, but my deputy was. And one of the adults we made contact with cried. Oh. You know, and it was sort of a realization for this person that their child had a real issue.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll do in terms of folks who are starting to go down that path, or folks who have already gone that path, but we don't have a case. So
right.
We're not just going to sit around. We have to do something.
And then they have the choice.
Right. Exactly.
They have the choice. It's either going to be, I got this letter and it's a badge of honor. Good. I've been noticed. I've made it. I've arrived. Or, oh crap.
Yep. And then we have to make sure we follow up on the law enforcement. So if they do go down, if they take that approach, I don't care, or I am a badass, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. We have to make sure that they're held accountable when they commit a crime, and there's swift justice and there's stiff penalties for their actions. And when it comes to gang activity, that's why I think it's so important to have great relationships with our federal law enforcement partners, because the feds are just better equipped to deal with organized crime and gangs. And then the other piece to all of this is prevention. So we have the law enforcement. We have to take the bad guys out who are too far gone or who are too dangerous. You have the community intervention piece that I just described, and then there's pure prevention.
Yeah.
How do we get ahead of this problem before it's an issue? And the key there is early intervention, evidence-based programs.
Yes. And
the best way to do it is through the schools, because you have your captive audience.
Yeah.
So
and that's for bullying, for gangs. Certainly, 5, 6, 7 years old, you don't need to be talking about drugs and alcohol. But you do need to be talking about feeling.
Exactly. Coping
Stress. Skills, stress. My mom, I used to call it butterflies in your stomach when you were little. Nobody named it anxiety, because if they told me I had that, but everyone gets nervous. It's a normal human emotion. How do you deal with that? And that's the best way that you can empower your kid to deal with it and say, you know what, I'm okay. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to do whatever, but I'm okay. Not that I need, mom and dad to come up and fix everything. That's the worst thing that I think that I see parents doing more and more of. You don't need to fix it. You need to empower your child. Pros and cons of the situation, and how can I make it better for me tomorrow?
Right.
And let them handle it. Because they're going to be faced with choices always. So when they get to be 12 years old, they have more of a wherefore that they can say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't need to do that. I know how to cope with what I don't want to feel, because that's the biggest thing with drugs right now. And that feeling with the gangs, and that's scary. A lot of parents are very scared of the gang activity. Lake Grove, Brentwood, they were all over the place. Makes you a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, one of the things we'll be doing is holding community forums to raise awareness among parents about telltale signs of gang activity or gang involvement. So whether it's colors to be aware of, certain paraphernalia in the house, we're going to empower parents to essentially spy on their kids.
So let's bring that up. What age do you see kids really starting to get involved? What would be the perfect age for a recruit?
Well, I think we can't start the prevention work too early.
No, I agree.
So
wholeheartedly.
in Wyandanch and North Belport, where we piloted this program, we call it Change. We start in the 3rd grade. and we target children who are showing signs of some sort of delinquency, or who we know are going home to situations where family members are involved in gangs.
Okay.
So it's very targeted. In Brentwood, 6th grade is sort of what we're discussing right now. In terms of recruitment, it depends on the community, it depends on the gang. But certainly there are gangs that recruit at the 6th grade level. And it's because these kids are...
It's a very pivotal age.
Exactly. They're undeveloped.
Yeah.
Enormous insecurities, especially for recent immigrants.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids are coming over and they were exposed to certain gangs in their native country. So when they come here and it's a new place, it's very easy for the gang to recruit them. There's a sense of comfort and familiarity. They're familiar with that culture. So that's tough. And we all need to band together to fight against that. And look, part of that is law enforcement needs to take some of these people out.
Yeah.
But an even bigger part is how do we protect our kids, and how do we give them the ability to operate, to make the right decisions,
to say no.
To say no.
To say no. I'm not interested. I'm covered. I have my sides covered. I'm covered with family, community, church, school. When you're covered in those areas, it's hard for an outside influence to get in. Not that it can't, but you have resources to go to. Every kid needs a go-to person. They need to have somebody that they're very comfortable sharing things with, and that's not always mom and dad. I know that a couple of years ago we did a survey of about 300 kids in high school, and it wasn't mom and dad is always up there on the list, but coaches, whether they were involved in sports or not, it was coaches. So I think training coaches, certainly, to recognize and to have that open-ended conversation with kids, whether it be about drugs and alcohol, whether it be, there's so many things that they can handle. But I know, when my son found Thomas dead, he called me and then he called his wrestling coach. And they're still best buddies, but that was his go-to guy. And he never left his side. And that is something that I'm internally grateful for, because they had that bond. And he felt comfortable enough to share all those feelings with. But I think on the other side of that we have to empower. If certain teachers are going to step up and take these extra jobs, and it shouldn't just be a job to earn an extra $5,000 for the year, that comes responsibility in dealing with these kids. So when you start to see something happening, you know exactly, they know how to intercede. It's a crazy thing.
Right, yeah.
Believe me, when Andrew did experiment, and I said, when I found out, I said, get in the car. He's like, where are we going? I go, we're going up to see your wrestling coaches. No! That was it. That was the last person that he wanted to see.
Right.
I go, oh no, you're a big tough guy. So you'll get to tell them what you think is so smart that you're doing. That was the end of that. But what a great thing that I had them as a partner. Not to step in and take over for me, to be my partner and say, you know what? Mom says no too, we're saying no. Now where are you going to turn? And that's so important for these kids. Kids, you have little ones. Do they love to feel their boundaries? They like to step out every now and again. But when they get tucked in at night, they know that they're safe, that they're loved, and that's the word, safe. Just safe from everything else that could happen. And we need to give that back to them. We'll be right back after this message.
professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
Galaxy Luxury Coach is a full-service limousine and party bus company. Family-owned and operated, we are an industry leader with over 25 years of experience in providing best-in-class luxury transportation for your special event. Whether it's your precious wedding day, an all-day wine tour out east, your high school prom, that special birthday, or just an amazing night on the town, our professional chauffeurs stand ready to ensure your special event is truly special. Galaxy Luxury Coach has one of the largest and modern party bus fleets in the New York area. Our party buses are simply nightclubs on wheels. Concert sound systems, light shows, lasers and strobes, multicolor LED lighting brilliantly lights your party bus inside and out. For corporate and more laid-back events, we will cater to your specific needs and requests. What sets Galaxy aside from all others in the luxury transportation industry is our attention to detail in customizing our services to your special event. At Galaxy, it's all about you and your guests. Galaxy customers return time and time again because they know they can trust Galaxy to help deliver those lifetime memorable moments. Step aboard and let your Galaxy experience begin.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Horsehair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly using Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Sini discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
The Stylistics Review, and you're watching Madhousetv.com.
Welcome back to Long Island in Crisis. And Tim, I mean, that is just a phenomenal program. And it needs to be targeted to every elementary school certainly in Suffolk County.
Yeah, it's a great program, and it's an early intervention program. That's what I like about it. We're dealing with issues before they become real problems.
Absolutely. But what we were just talking about off air is there's always someone watching you. So how do you show up every day in life? There's always that little person that's going to be mimicking what you're going to do. So if you're negative and pessimistic, that's what you pass on, whether you mean to or not. But when you show kids that you can be community-minded, and, go and help. My boys, my next door neighbors were like another set of grandparents for them. And my boys, when they got done shoveling, I said, don't expect to get paid. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And you just put it, would you want somebody to help Poppy? Oh, yeah. But they would make enough noise so that Mr. Miller knew that it was them shoveling, so that if there was any money coming out the door, that he knew who to give it to. But they always took care of him, and that's important. It's important to put that out there when you see someone struggling. Stop and help. Not everybody's out to get you.
Right, exactly. There are so many great people in this county who want to help, whether it's in the school system or in sports or in the police department, in probation, in government, in church. So it's about empowering people.
Sheriff DeMarco too. I mean, we've certainly built a world-class jail, but it should never have to get to that point. That's the end point. That's when it's still a societal cost to all of us. How much does it cost for 1 year incarceration?
Yeah, it's
Approximately 50 grand?
Yeah, it's too. Yes, yeah, about $50,000.
Imagine if we intervened long before with $50,000 worth of drug treatment programs in one person's life.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I mean, and we've Sheriff DeMarco is a very progressive thinking sheriff, and we need to be investing in alternatives to incarceration. So whether it's the drug court program, veterans court, and
Yes.
What I'm trying to identify now are ways to even get ahead of it before the person has been charged, because a lot of times what happens is defense attorneys may advise their clients not to do drug court because it's hard, and it may be
Because you can't do drugs?
right.
Yeah, imagine
Right.
that.
Yeah, and it may be an easier path for their client to work out a plea deal and do maybe a little time and get out and move on with their lives. So, because what happens is they take a plea essentially, and if they don't complete the drug court, they have to eat the plea,
Okay.
and they'll go to jail. So
Okay.
it's either get better or go to jail.
Right.
So they do make a commitment, and there is a risk, but obviously it's a commitment to treatment and to health.
Yes.
But a lot of times they won't go that way. They'd rather take the easy plea, or there's enough time in the process where someone who perhaps wanted to get help, they change their mind. Perhaps they're bailed pending acceptance into the drug treat program, and they change their minds about what they want to do. So we're losing people, is my point. So
We're
how do
losing
we?
people, and then when they are charged and they come out, they can't get jobs. So then that, again, just defeats them, knocks them down. Well, I might as well drink. I might as well drug because I can't even get a job. I'm never going to. And that plays on your psyche. And that allows their disease then to, again, talk to them in a big way.
Right. Yeah, and it's prison or jail, prison. Even in some of the more progressive jails, it's not a good place to be. And
I wouldn't think so.
We're not reforming folks in jail. So if you have someone who's nonviolent, who could benefit from a treatment program, that is a much better use of our money. Now, I'm the first one to criticize some of the diversion of drug dealers. There are drug dealers who are taking advantage of our diversion statutes and are getting into drug treatment programs when they were peddling the poison on the street. I have no tolerance for that. But people who are addicted to drugs, who are in trouble because of their addiction, it makes sense oftentimes to invest in treatment and not incarceration. We had a mandate to build a third jail in Suffolk County. It would have cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build it, and then to maintain it, who knows what it would have cost to staff it and to maintain it. Sheriff DeMarco and I worked together to negotiate a deal with the state to lift the mandate. And part of the argument we made to the state was an investment in alternatives to incarceration programs. And they lifted the mandate, saving taxpayers millions of dollars. And I get a daily email about our inmate count. And as police commissioner, obviously, I'm looking at my arrest numbers, and I want to be arresting violent offenders and going after people to prevent crime and to protect people. But at the same time, we have to be smart about criminal justice, and we have to be smart with how we deal with people after they interface with law enforcement. And we have about 1,300 inmates in Suffolk County, which is drastically down from the early 2000s and the late 90s.
Excellent.
So
And out of those, can you realize how many are really drug related to their
I don't know the number off the
incarceration?
top of my head, but I know it's a large percentage.
Yeah.
Because even if you like put aside drug possession,
Right.
the larcenies, the burglaries, the robberies, a lot of those are fueled by drug addiction.
Yes.
So now, someone's violent, we may have to take them off the street, so I'm not suggesting they should be in jail. But the fact of the matter is, most people in our jails have some substance abuse disorder.
Yes.
So, we need to deal with that if we want to make
Can
real
we
change.
put any programs in jail for that?
Yeah, we did. Sheriff DeMarco and I piloted a program that's ongoing, and it utilizes Vivitrol, which is
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a medically assisted treatment program utilizing Vivitrol, which is an opioid antagonist. So for viewers who aren't familiar with it, it's a 30-day lasting drug. It's an injection. It has no abuse potential. It's not an agonist like Suboxone and Methadone. And I'm not knocking those drugs.
No, but
I'm a big believer in
it's-
anything that works. But it's a different type of drug.
But it's a shot, so that it's not something they have to take every single day.
Right, exactly. It lasts 30 days, so it's
Yeah.
a commitment. But what it does is it prevents someone from getting high.
Yes.
So it buys someone essentially 30 days of sobriety and mental clarity, mental stability, so that they can stay into treatment. So what we're doing is we're targeting folks who are going to be re-entering society. So we'll give them a free shot before they leave.
Okay.
And we negotiated a deal with the pharmaceutical company, so they've scholarshiped the program. So we'll give them a shot before they leave. Then we will hook them up with a community treatment provider on the outside.
Excellent.
We'll help them get back their insurance, because when you're in prison,
Yeah.
you lose your insurance. And we'll get them into the community treatment program, and we'll keep an eye on them. Now, some of these people are doing split jail time and probation, so the folks who are on probation, we can monitor.
Yeah.
But even the folks who aren't on probation, we keep an eye on them to see if they're staying with their treatment. And the results are mixed, but I'm optimistic. We're going to keep doing it.
If you save one, you've really done a great job.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we show a educational video in jail about the drug and about the treatment program, and then it's voluntary. So those who are interested, we then do a medical clearance, and if they are good to go.
What percentage of them, so if you showed it to 10, how many will actually take the
Yeah,
shot?
we've showed it to several hundred, and it's only a matter of, I forget the numbers. I think 200-something people expressed interest, but then much less than that actually took the shot.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers right now, but the numbers.
It's sad, isn't
Yeah,
it? It
yeah.
really is
The thing
sad.
about Vivitrol is it's very effective.
Yes.
So you can't get high.
Yeah.
So for someone who's suffering from addiction, that's a real commitment.
Yeah.
with
That's a real letdown. But
Yeah.
when you don't think, it's hard to think the way somebody suffering with the disease thinks, because you could be dead, brought back to life with Narcan, and then go back and get high. That's not normal thinking. So just because it doesn't make sense to someone who doesn't suffer with it, it'll never make sense. You can't argue with mental illness. There's no arguing with it, so don't try to understand it. So like you're saying, you're giving them this free shot. And there are plenty of viewers right now that would be saying, well, just give it to all of them. They have no rights, just give it to them. Can't do that.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree.
And I don't either. I think
Yeah.
that, you
Yeah, and this is actually a real debate. So one of the things.
it's non-narcotic. Nothing
yeah,
can happen
so
to them.
To be clear, there's no abuse potential. No one's
Right.
selling Vivitrol on the street, and there's no psychotropic effect. So it acts as a blockade on your opioid receptors, so that
Yes.
if you did try to use an opiate, it would block it. So one thing, you have to be clean,
Yes.
which no doubt people can get access to drugs in jail, but it's an easier population to deal with, people who are incarcerated, to make sure they're clean. I know that treatment providers will do a Narcan challenge, they call it, and they'll actually give someone Narcan to make sure that they don't have any opioids in their system. So if they give them a spray of Narcan, they'll go through acute withdrawal, and then they'll know, okay, you're not ready for Vivitrol because you have to be clean. But there's 2 drug courts essentially in Suffolk County. There's the regular drug court, which deals with misdemeanor drug offenses, and then there's the judicial diversion court, which deals with felony drug cases.
Okay.
And when we first started talking about Vivitrol, we had a very lively discussion about whether or not we could.
It was a nice way to put it.
whether or not we could mandate folks to use Vivitrol, and to me, it was a little bit of a red herring. It was, we can mandate treatment if they want the deal,
Right.
right? And then let the medical provider, let the medical professional, I should say, decide what's the best treatment for this person. But once that medical provider decides, okay, we're going to do medically assisted treatment, and let's say it's going to be Vivitrol, then that becomes part of the deal.
Yes.
And they signed on to that. And if they veer off that, then they should have to deal with the consequence. So, and it's not mandated. The
Right.
person doesn't have to participate in judicial diversion. And moreover, the specific treatment program is going to be created by the healthcare professional. The only thing the court is doing is saying, if you're going to be in this court, you have to do treatment, and you have to do the treatment that your healthcare provider is saying you have to do. And if you don't do that treatment, then I'm going to lay
Put
down
you
the
in jail.
hammer.
Right.
So I don't
There's a
consider
choice.
that. Yeah.
That's not mandating
Right.
anything. That's not violating anybody's civil rights.
No.
You have a choice.
Right.
Go to jail.
Yeah.
Go to treatment.
Yeah, and there are people in the courts who are supportive of this. So there's still a lot of folks that are still uneducated about Vivitrol. But I think
anything that keeps someone sober for a period of time, use it. Everything has to come out of the toolbox.
Right, exactly.
That's just the way it is.
Right.
Because the longer you can keep someone without a drink or a drug, the higher the success rate is going to be.
Right.
So now, with the diversion and with the drug dealers specifically, because I know Nassau County DA Madeline Singas put forth some legislation specifically for dealers.
Right.
So do you subscribe to the same kind of theory that she had?
Yeah, and both in terms of stiffening penalties for drug dealers who cause overdoses, and also making sure that dealers aren't able to take advantage of the diversion statutes. It's not just being tough on drug dealers. It's also saving resources for people who deserve it.
Yes.
So it's we don't want to be diverting resources to hardcore criminals who don't deserve the services. So, yeah, I think there's a lot we can do. I think we're moving in the right direction in terms of treatment. I think we still need to focus more on prevention.
It's still, and I said this to you before, in this day and age, to have anyone say, well, I don't have to worry about that. That's not my kid. I can't even fathom it anymore. It's every single one of our kids. It's every single one of our kids. If we go back to Natalie Chiappa back in 2007 or 2008, high 90 student, beautiful, cheerleader, dead of an overdose. I don't know, this is not your typical, when people thought of an addict, they thought of somebody living under a bridge. These are our young people every single day. Kindergarten teacher fatally overdosed in Sag Harbor. Hello? How many bus drivers were caught last year dealing on the side? It's in every facet of our lives. Doctors also. I don't know what's going to take the general American public to wake up. Just wake up and open your eyes to what's going on. If you have 3 young kids, but even the Zika virus, do you want to know how many people freaked out this morning that there's 3 cases in Suffolk County and 3 cases in Nassau County? Meanwhile, we have 400 people dead on Long Island from drug overdose. How do you fathom that?
Yeah, it's
right?
the not my child sort of
I don't,
thinking.
right.
Yeah.
I just, if you're so proactive about having them eating right, getting their vaccines, keeping them safe from everything, how can you not keep them safe from the easiest thing? And I still think that alcohol being legal, although for people over the age of 21, is still that mindset. Well, I did it. I did it but kids that are 12, 13, 14 shouldn't be doing that. We know the science behind it now. So I don't know what it's going to take to really get that through to people.
Yeah, one of the new prevention efforts that we're engaging at the police department, so obviously the best place to do prevention is the schools, right? We have
Yes.
our captive audience, we have educators there, people whom they trust. We've also experimented with peer-to-peer, which can be very effective. But they have a curriculum they have to teach. They have resource issues. They have time issues. So I'm partnering with Northport right now to push in material in the regular class. So there's a teacher who
Darrell St. George.
there's educators who will take the material and
Yes.
work it into their
He does an
curriculum.
amazing job, doesn't he? Darrell, Tammy, Walsh, they do an amazing job of just interweaving it into everyday studies.
Yeah.
And it should be done everywhere.
Right, it should, and it's a really great, innovative way to do it. So we started the Long Island Heroin Task Force, which is a partnership between Nassau County Police Department, Suffolk County Police Department. And what we do is we have a federally funded drug analyst through HIDA, which is the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Grant. It's a grant out of the White House. So we're a federally funded analyst who looks at all of our overdoses, and they analyze gender, age, location, type of overdose, fatal, non-fatal, Narcan saves. They really, cut up the data in a lot of different ways. Very helpful for us because we're going to target areas that see a spike in ODs, or if we're spotting maybe increased drug activity in a certain location, it allows us to allocate resources intelligently. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking that. Some of that data is sensitive that I can't release, but some of it's just stats.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm doing is I'm releasing the stats to any school district who wants to partner, and they can utilize the stats in their curriculum. So Tammy has,
She's a math teacher.
A math teacher.
Yeah.
And I sat in on one of her classes last week, and it was awesome. Teaching kids decimals and fractions and percentages with hard-hitting facts about the opiate epidemic.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's just, the more that they hear it, it's going to, they're not deaf, so it gets buried somewhere in their head. Even just the Project 72, how they came up with that. It's so progressive, but we have teachers that are willing to do that. Because I will share with you, I won't even mention the school district. I'll be kind. I'm trying to bite my tongue. But there were teachers that did not want to be Narcan trained because they wouldn't save someone. That's not my job. Is your job not to be a human being? Because that I can't even understand. And if you have decided to educate children, then you need to be open to do anything and everything to educate them. Because dead kids don't test well. And I've had that conversation with more, parents with high school students. It's part of the denial. But, they're not going to be able to take their SATs. They're shooting 20 bags a day, and you're worried about them taking the SATs? We're always in a rush to get them finished with something when they should really just be enjoying the journey that they're on and let them be kids a little bit. Even talking to high school students, this is what they will tell you. You'll probably be just like my mom and don't think that I have a stressful day. I go, no, I do think you have a stressful day. They're up at 5:15. They eat lunch at 10 o'clock. They have, they're in school till 2. They play sports or go to a club. They have a job. They get home 6, 7 o'clock at night. And then they have 4 or 5 hours worth of homework to do. And yet, as adults, people will say, you should be having the time of your life. This is the best time of your life. they're not having fun. They're trying to navigate how to get into a good school while getting a good grade point average. They have to have all these clubs because then they're not well-rounded. What have we done to them that they can't go to the homecoming game and be stupid and, paint their faces and just have fun and be kids? That's what we've done. We're always in a rush to get them someplace else when they could just be 14.
Yeah, and we see it on our roadways. I mean,
Yeah.
People, they can be self-absorbed, and everyone's rushing, and their faces are in their mobile devices, and
Yeah,
it's.
that's
I mean, you mentioned.
crazy.
People not focused on the real issues. We just had a whole weekend filled with hysteria about clowns.
When you think about that, listen, if I saw a guy dressed as a clown in my neighborhood, I'm going to make a phone call and say, there's a clown in my neighborhood. I'm not really sure what he's doing. I'm not going to be hysterical about it, though, because it could just be kids having fun.
Right.
It could be somebody creepy. But what's the issues? The clown. The clown. And those 3 cases of the Zika virus is just going to ruin somebody's day today. When you've just unearthed 2 teenage kids in Brentwood, when we really think about that there's 2 families that just discovered that now they're not runaways. Now all hope has been lost. How can that even compare to what has happened? You had the other 2 murders in Bayshore where they were gunned down. I mean, that's serious issues. And then you have a clown sighting. So it doesn't even belong in the same playing field. Halloween used to just be fun. Now people spend more money on decorating their houses for Halloween than they do for Christmas. So it's just, just go out and have some good, clean fun. Throw some toilet paper, shaving cream. I'm sure you don't want to hear that as a police commissioner. But
I don't condone that.
that just let them be kids a little bit. Nothing malicious, just good, clean fun. So what would you like to say to the people of Suffolk County? Because I'm going to give you the last couple of minutes to just really give them your vision for the next year. Let's keep it short.
Yeah, I think that people need to be very proud of Suffolk County. It's a great place. It's a diverse place, both in terms of people and landscapes, and it's a great place to live. We're right by the city. We have the ocean. We have the bays. We have the North Shore. We have the vineyards. We have nice downtowns in many areas. It's one of the safest counties in the country. It's getting safer. So my vision is to make sure that every penny of taxpayer dollars is spent intelligently in the police department, to make sure that we're utilizing technology, that we're utilizing evidence-based principles, that we're hiring the right people, to make sure that we keep driving crime down, and that we're empowering communities so that crime's not an issue. They can focus on downtown revitalization. They could focus on educating their kids most effectively. They can focus on extracurricular activities and community events, and that's the idea, to have a safe community so that we can keep progressing.
And he said the word on more than one occasion, which is community. And we have to go back to being communities and outreaching your community and getting involved. Be proud of your community. No man is an island, and we need to remember that. So get involved with community activities, with your church, with the school. Meet your coaches, meet everything, and just get involved in being, stop with this. I mean, that is the worst thing that I think, having a life that you want to have on social media, or creating the life that you could actually live, that is the life that you
Yeah.
created.
I mean, social media is a very interesting,
Phenomenon.
yes.
But look how many kids, that's a whole nother show, look how many kids get bullied, get silenced because they've been told by, 3 people, why don't you just go kill yourself? And they actually are. So teenage suicide is such a whole nother big problem that we have. But it's all tied to social media. I'm all for kids need to have a cell phone so you can get in contact with them. They just need that little flip phone. They don't need to be connected. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and look for in the future, you're going to be back. But we're also going to start to bring some of these programs, so let's empower our communities and let's do a better job. We know better, we have to do better. Not one more life should be lost to the disease of addiction, whether by incarceration or by death. Let's all step up. We can make this change, and we have to make this change. Have a great week.
Another dark hotel room, musty people.